Idemo dalje. Uživo iz studija, neću pokazivati jer će mi onda to staviti na naslovnu. Studio Korni. Ove kornjičicu mi je poklonila mama. Idemo, ovo je ono što sam pričala, znači mračne tajne na ranču, na tom Epsteinovom ranču koje su se događale. Ljudi moji, ovo kad čujete, ko je sve umiješan u to, šta se tamo događalo, niti jedan hrvatski medij ovo ne prenosi, ja ovo moram snimiti. Znam da ima ljudi koji zanimaju takve stvari i to je dobro. Dobro je znati gdje živimo i kako se pripremiti boriti protiv tog zla i ne pristajati u stranu zla nego dobra.
Some really dreadful things happen there. The cover-ups, the abuse. Why wasn't that address subject to any federal subpoenas? What went down there? We're going to cover it all on this episode right here. This is going to blow your mind. So Jeffrey Epstein had a ranch that occupied about 7,500 to 10,000 acres in a small city called Stanley, a county called Santa Fe in New Mexico. Okay? And in 2019, when the local district attorney wanted to do an investigation into child sex trafficking and abuse of that ranch, they were specifically told by the feds, do not go into that ranch. We've got it. We will be handling the investigation. But the feds did nothing. We now have the emails of what was going on with the federal process.
Oprostite, zaustavljam. To vam je isto ovo što smo neki od nas prijavili, slučajevi u Hrvatskoj. Šta radi hrvatska vlada, šta radi DORH, šta radi USKOK, šta radi SOA. Tako da bit ćete odgovorni. Ako strada još djece, vi ste odgovorni. Znači, figurativno rečeno, krv i traume te djece su na vašim rukama, gospodo. I drugovi.
Prosecutors in the Trump regime, and they said, we are not issuing subpoenas. We're staying away from that Santa Fe ranch. The ranch was called the Zorro Ranch. It was owned by a trust that Jeffrey Epstein owned called the Zorro Trust. Epstein acquired this ranch in 1993. Obviously, you now know that Epstein died in 2019. The ranch was eventually sold to some other entity in 2023. And in 2019, after Epstein was arrested for the second time by the feds, there was lots of questions about that ranch. Because there was a lot more, if you could even wrap your head around this, sexual abuse, sexual torture, and other things going on in that ranch than even the island, than even Palm Beach, than even his house in New York City. The ranch, especially based on its proximity to Mexico, because it was in New Mexico, its proximity to Mexico was a site of sex trafficking. We now know from hearing Jane Doe's stories, torture was taking place in there. So why the hell wasn't it subject to a subpoena? And if you go back to the July 2019 article by the New York Times, they also talk about how that's an area that Jeffrey Epstein was creating in order to procreate thousands of other Epsteins. He had his own kind of vision of basically getting all of these girls that he was sex trafficking pregnant and to procreate all these future Jeffrey Epsteins to inhabit. That was happening in Santa Fe, in New Mexico. Let's just go through some of the email findings that we have here. And there are just some things that'll blow your mind. Like, the ranch is owned by the Zorro Trust, which was Epstein's trust. In 2008, the Zorro Trust won a lottery in Oklahoma, and it's possible that's the same Zorro Trust. And then there are emails with Epstein talking about having girls use the lottery ticket and the lottery numbers that he wanted to give them. Was that one of the ways he made this money? Look,
Nevjerojatno, ljudi moji,
This is a December
85
20th,
milijuna dolara
2019
je.
email, JE Estate Meeting. And as Aaron Parnas writes, this email confirms that prosecutors never searched Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico.
Užas.
We know that's where a lot of the abuse happened, so evidence was intentionally never collected by federal prosecutors. Here's the email from prosecutors to each other. We're not yet exactly sure what our ability is to provide to the trustees what is effectively discovery in a now defunct criminal case against Epstein himself. That said, I can convey that we did produce to defense counsel detailed search warrants in connection with the New York property. Perhaps you would be able to obtain those from Epstein's criminal defense counsel. In particular, I believe what you're looking for would be especially at, then it lists Bates number page range, USAO 4381 to 4445, but potentially also USAO 2662 to 4380. Though I note that a handful of those pages were marked as confidential under a protective order as set forth in the discovery letter sent to counsel on July 31st, 2019.
Wow.
We will also review the status of the search warrant return with respect to the island property, and we have not searched the New Mexico property, and I hope this is useful in the interim. Separately, I conveyed your request for a meeting to discuss the possibility of resolving the government's potential forfeiture claims. So they're giving a Bates range, various pages of documents to look at. This is December 2019. Epstein died August of 2019. As you now know, there was a press release about Epstein's death that was drafted August 9th of 2019. He died August 10, 2019. Then there was a second press release that added the words, died by apparent suicide. Then this is December 20th of 2019, and you're seeing that they're saying there has been no search of the New Mexico ranch. Why would there be no search? But let's go back. September 30th, 2009. This email got copied to FBI Director Mueller. He was
Pogledajte vi, znači, oni su, ljudi moji, znali sve. Oni su znali šta se na tom ranču događa. Djevojčice iz Meksika, ko zna od kuda su tamo doforavali i življavali se seksualno na njima, koliko će tamo kostura naći. Oni ako prekopaju taj ranč, ja sam sigurna tamo su, ne, možda čak i na 1000 leševa. Ko zna. Zašto je FBI, zašto je policija to zataškavala? Zašto se zataškava, zašto se ne rješava slučaj u Hrvatskoj? Razmislite malo, taj čovjek u Hrvatskoj kupuje parcele sa novcem državnih obveznih poreznika. Ovaj lažni apostol o kojem sam pričala i lažni pastor koji je mene bio maltretirao 6 godina na sudu. Izgubio ga. Za šta se kupuju te parcele? Oni tamo imaju kamp za djecu. Šta se tamo događa? Lucija Marković. Ona je javno svjedočila, ona je znači bila maloljetna kad je došla u tu takozvanu crkvu. I kad su iz nje istjerivali pod navodnicima zle duhove da bi se ovaj zlostavljač izrugivao. I kaže, zli duhovi imaju traume od kršćana o kojima đavo priča. Znači, čovjek je stvarno poremećen. Evo, sve studije to govore, ne da ja vrijeđam, nego na temelju studija, jer ja ovo studiram godinama. Ne doslovno, nisam upisala studij, ni ne trebam. Ali slušam, znači, stručnjake za sekte i kultove. Kao što je dr. Steven Hasan, kao što je doktorica Janja Lalić, stručnjak za traume, doktorica Diane Langberg i hrpa drugih ljudi. Dr. Les Carter, on vam je stručnjak po pitanju narcisoidnog zlostavljanja, izvrstan, tako jedan predivan čovjek, baš očinski lik, topao, ljubazan, dobar. nema osude, nema, znači ima, hvala Bogu, evo tako da i ovaj internet služi nečemu dobrom. Gledajte ljudi, ja radim sve i ja želim ozdraviti. Znači ne želim da, mada me to sve obilježilo do kraja života, ali obilježilo me na taj način da želim pomoći ljudima koji su upali u ta sranja, da moram tak reći, jer da sam ja znala ovo što sada znam, nakon 30 godina, da sam ovo sa 19 godina znala, da me neko upozorio, Ivana, znači taj čovjek ti je to, napravio to, da me barem neko upozorio. Pojma nisam imala. A Biblija ti kaže da onaj koji želi biti nadglednik, znači čak ta titula pastor više se ne koristi u Novom Zavjetu nego nadglednik. Starješina. Znači nisi ti tu da vladaš nad ljudima. Kaj tebi kaže, mora imati dobro svjedočanstvo od ovih izvana i od ovih iznutra. Znači kakvo svjedočanstvo je bilo ko ima o tom čovjeku? Nikakvo. Znači ja sam nakon 30 godina saznala, znači svako svjedočanstvo o njemu je loše. Loše, ostavio ljude na cjedilu, gledaj. Sorry, to je tako, to su činjenice. I ne možeš biti na toj poziciji na kojoj jesi, jednostavno ne možeš, ne zadovoljavaš uvjete, svađaš se, tužakaš se po sudovima. Znači radiš sve kontra pisane riječi Božje. Nemamo više dalje kaj pričati. Ajmo nastavi dalje.
There's the FBI director then, where it says that Epstein's Zorro Trust won an $80 million lottery ticket in New Mexico. It was actually Oklahoma. And that he has a ranch near the U.S.-Mexico border where trafficked children are routed prior to being dispersed to the East Coast. This was just a letter and a tip. Some interesting facts that should be passed to the investigative agents on the Epstein case. I will also copy Director Mueller. Zorro Trust belonging to Epstein won an $80 million lottery ticket in New Mexico. Zorro Ranch belonging to Epstein sits close to the U.S.-Mexican border, where most trafficked children are routed prior to being dispersed to the East Coast. Several high-ranking officials and friends of Epstein have confirmed that he has sexual relations with underage minors at that facility. Both Ghislaine Maxwell and were served last week. 2 key witnesses on Epstein's camp. Thank you. And so let's take a look, though, when there was an FBI investigation that was starting to take place at the ranch with the house managers at that ranch. Again, just a reminder, Epstein purchases this ranch in 1993 using a vehicle called the Zorro Trust, and he calls this ranch in New Mexico the Zorro Ranch. It's on 7,500 to 10,000 acres of land. So this is said July 19th of 2019. And here's what it says. And this is actually, so this one is a tip, and then I'm going to show you the next one, which was actually February 13th of 2007. So this was a tip from a retired New Mexico State police officer. The next one from 2007 is from the house managers. Let me read this for you. July 19th, 2019. Here's what it says. This is 2019. On July 19, 2019 at 7:48 p.m., retired New Mexico State police officer, and it's redacted, the telephone number is redacted, other personal identifiers refused, called the FBI National Threat Operations Center regarding information related to Epstein. This person provided the following information. This person lives in a neighborhood of a property owned by Jeffrey Epstein. The property, which is on Zorro Ranch Road, Stanley, New Mexico, has recently had a large barn constructed. The barn is suspicious as there is a garage door that appears to be a sally port, and there is a chimney. This person who's making this tip, this retired police officer, is concerned that the property could have potentially have an incinerator concealed within the barn. An old 1970s mobile home was recently put right behind the barn, which this retired police officer believes does not follow Santa Fe County regulations. There have been a lot of high-profile people seen frequenting the property. This retired police officer has heard rumors that the property was used for recruiting girls to visit with Epstein, but he has no factual evidence to support this claim. This police officer heard rumors that girls from Albuquerque and the Moriarty area were recruited for Epstein. This person patrolled this area for 15 years before he retired. The property was owned previously by the governor of New Mexico, but the property was sold to Epstein before the governor's passing. The property that so-and-so is reporting is about 3 miles away from Epstein's mansion. The retired cop explained that there was a lot of security for the properties, including cameras, sally ports, and other security measures. And this person explained that the barn was constructed, doesn't look like a barn you would use for ranching. This person wanted to report the information to the FBI because he's concerned that evidence could be destroyed here. Again, that's July 19th, 2019. That's before Epstein dies. This is the one I wanted to show you before then, from the house managers. And you'll see these house managers were speaking with the FBI back on February 13th of 2017. Then they get a call from someone and then they shut down speaking with the FBI. But the FBI was suspicious that things were going down in this ranch, sex trafficking, around this period of time. Again, in New Mexico, in Santa Fe. So these house managers, it gives, their names are redacted, and it says the following. New Mexico was interviewed at the guest house of Zorro Ranch, Stanley, New Mexico. After being advised of the identity of the interviewing agents and the nature of the interview, so-and-so provided the following information. Person X and Person Y, his wife, have been managing the Zorro Ranch for Jeffrey Epstein for approximately 4 years. There are 5 to 6 full-time staff at the ranch, as well as some seasonal employees. Epstein spends approximately 50 days a year at the ranch during his downtime, mostly in the summer. In the summer, Epstein generally spends 2 to 3 weeks time at the ranch and is shuttled around by helicopter. The last time Epstein was at the ranch was Thanksgiving 2006. Epstein normally flies into either Albuquerque or Santa Fe and is driven to the ranch. Very little notice is given before Epstein flies to the ranch, usually 24 to 48 hours. Epstein usually brings his personal assistant, his bodyguard, friends, personal trainer, and sometimes his masseuse. The masseuse are not normally flown to the ranch, but are hired by, this is redacted, keeps financial records, and usually arranges the massages. The names of the masseuses are obtained from 10,000 Ways Day Spa or by referrals. This redacted name said that the masseuses are all checked out and they are professionals who are licensed massage therapists. There have been approximately 5 different therapists used in the past. These redacted names said that they could provide the names of therapists used and the amounts paid to them, but that we needed to go to the office to meet her. Upon arriving at the office and greeting so-and-so, they received a phone call from the main office that told him they were no longer allowed to speak with us. The interview immediately ended.
Most of us are numb to it now, but wow, this has been a wild ride.
Da, ljudi moji, zlo je na najvišem vrhu, je zlo. Strašno. Isto kao u Hrvatskoj. Isto kao u Hrvatskoj, moramo se boriti protiv toga. Nema šutnje više.
1st of 2019, here's a message that shows up on the Epstein files. This is sensitive, so will be the first and last email depending on your discretion. You can choose to take it or trash it, but this comes from a person who has been there and seen it all as a former staff at the Zorro Ranch. The material below is taken from Jeffrey Epstein's home as my insurance in case of future litigation against Epstein. Sorry, no questions. What is damaging about Jeffrey Epstein is yet to be written. Did you know that somewhere in the hills outside of Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of Jeffrey and Madam G? Both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex. Here are the video footage of Jeffrey Epstein. And it says the certain types of seconds. 13 minutes, 57 seconds, sex video with minor. 27 minutes, 3 seconds, threesome videos. Underage, whatever videos. Matthew Metwood videos. Girl from Bay Area suicide attempt confession to Madam G. Please arrange 1 Bitcoin by 6 p.m. Eastern today to the Bitcoin wallet address. So-and-so. By the way, here was the article from November 14th, August 25th, 2008. Trust claims lottery worth
Ma nema milosti za to. Smrtna kazna i gotovo.
A trust has claimed winning $85 million Powerball tickets sold in El Tus, the Oklahoma lottery said Monday. A group called the Zorro Trust came forward and requested the lump sum payment option, yielding $29.3 million after taxes for the winning ticket in the July 2nd drawing. The ticket was purchased at a Stripes convenience store in El Tus. So this Zorro Trust, not sure if it's the exact same trust, but there are emails saying the trust was the one who won the lottery.
Da,
won
može se
the
misliti.
$85 million lottery, but taking it as a lump sum, they took $29 million. Couldn't have been
Koji
that
deal
Epstein's
je?
connections with government officials
Koja
gave him the
namještaljka?
data to win lotteries and make money. I don't know,
Nevjerojatno.
but I think this is highly, highly suspicious. There's been mixed reporting on if Zorro Trust was Epstein's trust there, or if this was just another trust. But if you look through these emails, there are emails like this from Epstein. I'll tell you, these are the numbers to choose to win the lottery. You tell me you'd rather choose your own if you prefer to do it your way over winning. It's okay, it's your life. Lots of lottery talk by Epstein.
Unbelievable.
Here are just some more photos of the ranch. You can see
Wow.
right here the 7,500, 10,000 acres. You see how vast it is right here. Let's take a look right here at this next email right here. This is an email from
Horror ranč.
Jeffrey Epstein to others, and they talk about meeting with, this is August 5th, 2015. He's sending a message about having a meeting that's going to be taking place at the ranch, and he says Peter Thiel might be coming to the ranch this weekend.
Sotona,
You're welcome
Antichrist.
as well. It's a pretty unusual
Peter
and
Thiel.
private place.
To ime si
Epstein's inviting
istražite.
people,
Peter
to this
Thiel.
ranch over there. Here's the New York Times article, July 31st, 2019.
Jedan od
Jeffrey
Antichrista.
Epstein hoped to seed the human race with his DNA.
Pazi ovo.
Epstein, the wealthy financier who's accused of sex trafficking, had an unusual dream. He hoped to seed the human
Fuj,
race with
čovječ.
his DNA by
Fuj.
impregnating women, girls,
Sotono,
children
odvrno.
at his vast New Mexico ranch. And he confided to scientists and others
Bolesnik,
about his
bolesni,
scheme,
ja.
and that would take place at the ranch. So why would there not be a subpoena, and why would the Trump first administration not go to the ranch? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense at all. Let's keep going through some of these messages right here. This right here is from the New Zealand Herald, and it talks about that couple that was managing, or at least for a period of time, Epstein's ranch. A New Zealand couple who worked for Jeffrey Epstein may face a potential subpoena to appear before a truth commission into the late sex offender's activities, a New Mexico lawmaker says. Among the millions of files related to the child sex offender unsealed this month were revelations showing New Zealand couple Bryce and Karen Gordon managed his properties during the period prosecutors say he sex trafficked women and girls. The couple are not accused of any offending through their association with Epstein. So that's titled New Mexico Lawmakers May Subpoena New Zealand Couple Bryce and Karen Gordon over Epstein Links. This is from the local Los Alamos Daily Post. And this talks about this truth commission that's now being set up in New Mexico. Now, one of the things...
Ne možeš mi reći, gledaj, ako si radio na njegovom ranču, ne možeš mi reći da nisi znao ko je i kaj je. Ne možeš. E tako postoje i svjedoci u ovom hrvatskom slučaju. Što se ovog razbojnika tiče. Oni bi trebali dati svoje svjedočanstvo i to pod zakletvom. Da će govoriti istinu. Ne moraju davati zakletvu jer po zakonu davanje lažnog iskaza je kazneno djelo. Znači sve bi ih stavila u jednu sobu, sve, i javno da se prenosi. Ispitivanje. To. Na temelju činjenica, na temelju istrage. Znači u ovom slučaju potpuno su vlasti zakazale, pogledajte šta se dogodilo. Šta se toj djeci dogodilo. I znate šta je najgore? U takvim slučajevima, kada osoba koja je odgovorna ne postupi po svojoj Bogom danoj dužnosti, znate ko strada? Neko nevini njegov će stradat radi toga. Tako da uvijek nevini stradaju radi tuđeg zla. Uvijek. To je ono najgore.
That Epstein was able to use this Zorro trust and this property for is they did not require him in New Mexico after he pled guilty the first time around in 2007, 2008 to child prostitution. He didn't have to register as a sex offender in New Mexico based on some technicalities in the law and his relationship with the government in New Mexico at that time. So he was shielded from having to report himself as a sex offender in New Mexico. Let's just take a look at what this is saying, though, about this Truth Commission. A possible Truth Commission, or proposed Truth Commission to investigate possible crimes committed by Jeffrey Epstein at a Santa Fe County ranch could, state lawmakers hope, make New Mexico a leader in seeking accountability. House Joint Resolution 1 is headed to the House floor after winning unanimous approval from the House Judiciary Committee on Saturday and the House Government Elections and Indian Affairs Committee a week ago. State Representative Andrea Romero from Santa Fe, one of the sponsors of the resolution, said it proposed creating a bipartisan fact-finding mission aimed at getting the story straight, rather than investigating specific claims of sex trafficking or other crimes alleged to have occurred at the Zorro Ranch. It would empower a special subcommittee of state house members to conduct hearings, issue subpoenas, and compel the attendance of witnesses, and the committee would deliver a final report on December 31st. Lawmakers expressed hope that New Mexico could pursue accountability here, and it goes on to talk about how
neovisni se moraju uključiti istraživači u istragu, neovisni, nedržavni.
Matthew McQueen, this Democrat from Galstillo, whose district encompasses the Zorro Ranch, introduced a bill to close loopholes requiring people convicted of sex offenses out of state to register in New Mexico, because there was a loophole for technical reasons that she didn't have to register. The bill failed to pass, but McQueen said it was still a good idea to revive the proposal. I mean, that's pretty shocking, right? That this was introduced, but the loophole is still allowed to exist in New Mexico for people to hide if they're registered sex offenders. As he says, my thought was we don't want offenders to look around the country and think, where can I move, and no longer have to be treated in this way. And so that's pretty shocking to me that New Mexico still has this loophole. Here's how The Guardian describes the Zorro Ranch. The Zorro Ranch was a place where powerful men allegedly visited, including former governors of the state. It was also the proposed setting for Epstein's plan to spread his DNA across the human race. Multiple women have said that Epstein abused them at this New Mexico ranch. Among them is Jane Doe, the first accuser to testify at Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial. Jane said that she met Epstein in 1994 while attending the Interlochen Center of the Arts, an esteemed youth arts camp in Michigan. When Maxwell and Epstein learned that Jane was from Palm Beach, they requested her mother's phone number, she testified. Jane provided with her mom's contact information. When Jane returned, she and her mother were invited to tea. She started spending time with Epstein and Maxwell. Epstein started to sexually abuse Jane Doe when she was 14. She traveled with Epstein and Maxwell to New York City and New Mexico. I just remember someone at one point just came into my room and said, Jeffrey wants to see you, and then escorted me to see him. She said, I just, as usual, felt like my heart sink into my stomach, you know. I did not want to go see him, said Jane, who recalled being 15 or 16 at the time. I just remember being led to his bedroom and, you know, the same thing would happen. Annie Farmer, the fourth accuser to testify at Maxwell's sex trafficking trial, said the British socialite gave her a nude massage at the ranch when she was 16. During Maxwell's trial, Farmer testified that the morning after this encounter with Maxwell, Epstein lumbered into bed with her and said he wanted to cuddle, and she felt kind of frozen. He pressed his body into me. She said Farmer testified that she told Epstein she needed the restroom as to escape. Another woman identified as Jane Doe said she met Epstein during a school trip to New York City. At Epstein's townhouse, the secretary allegedly took photos of her and told her that Epstein really wanted to meet her. A few weeks later, Jane Doe alleged that the secretary emailed that Epstein was excited by the photos and that he was interested in her. Jane Doe and her sister were invited to a magic show in Las Vegas, and then Epstein's ranch. After the magic show, they flew to Epstein's plane to New Mexico. He was there along with several young girls at the ranch. Jane Doe said she was summoned to the main house, brought to Epstein's bedroom. There, she alleged Epstein was wearing a bathrobe and demanded a massage. She felt that Epstein wanted to participate in sexual activity, but she did not know what it was. Epstein seemed to get frustrated as a result. Epstein assaulted her with a device, she said in court papers. Virginia Giuffre, she says that she was sexually assaulted at the ranch as well. Giuffre said that Epstein trafficked her to other powerful men and politicians. In New Mexico at the time. And so you have all of that going down. And then, as I mentioned, you had New Mexico's Attorney General and local officials wanted to investigate. We have the documents here. They wanted to investigate Epstein in 2019, but they were prohibited from doing so by the feds.
Dajte zamislite vi to, ljudi moji, ej.
That they wanted to... let's go through these emails right here. Here, pull them up.
Zabranjeno im je da istražuju.
It says over here.
Ubojstva su u pitanju.
Hi, my name is Amanda.
Ubojstva su u pitanju. Znači, ljudi moji, iživljavanje na maloljetnoj djeci, ubojstva.
You can call my desk. These are prosecutors writing to each other. Thank you for your response and the additional information about the New Mexico Attorney General's office. We look forward to speaking to you on Thursday. Then it goes on to talk about it. As a preview in response to this email, we, the federal prosecutors from New York, we spoke with the New Mexico Attorney General's office back in July 2019. In essence, they agreed to cease any investigation into sex trafficking and share whatever they had gathered to date regarding sex trafficking activity with their office. We agreed that they were free to proceed with whatever other investigation unrelated to sex trafficking they may have concerning Epstein, and told them that at the conclusion of our case, we would pass along any information we may have gathered about state crimes that were committed in their jurisdiction. We have not communicated with anyone from the New Mexico Attorney General's office since that conversation in July 2019. You know, and what's interesting there is that one is signed by Maureen, who I believe to be Maureen Comey, James Comey. You know, so James Comey's daughter, who prosecuted Ghislaine and who prosecuted and who was going to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't understand why they stopped New Mexico from doing the sex trafficking investigation when then they did not do any subpoena or investigation into New Mexico.
UŽASA.
Into the ranch where all this stuff is going down. So I'm just putting that out there for you and all this information out there. Do with it what you want, but that's the data, and I'm just reading what the emails saying what we know about that ranch. And everyone talks about the island, and everybody talks about New York and Palm Beach. And by the way, Jane Doe said that Epstein introduced her to Trump and said, what do you think about this one? That was part of the testimony in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial as well. So, anyway, there you have all of that. Dark.
Strašno.
Dark.
Da.
Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribe.
Da, evo ljudi, ovo je zastrašujuće šta se događa u samom vrhu, kakvi ljudi vladaju svijetom i zato cijeli svijet stenje. To se osjeća. Ljudi imaju poremećaj sa spavanjem, depresivni su, anksiozni, imaju napadaje panike, umiru premladi, srčani, moždani udari, rakovi, stres. Tako da jako puno toga je tu i jednostavno to smeće se mora raščistiti, to mora past i ja vjerujem da Bog to sad razotkriva. Tako da, eto ljudi, informirajte se šta se stvarno događa u svijetu. Nemojte pušiti ovu propagandu. Sam Plenković vam je rekao Južna Koreja, znači on Hrvatsku smatra Južnom Korejom. On vam je elita ova, pod navodnicima, globalistička. Ja mogu što hoću. Ne možeš. Stari, ne možeš, kužiš. Ne možeš. Možda možeš jedno vrijeme, ali ne dokle hoćeš. Bog je iznad, stari moj. Bog je iznad i daćeš račune. Svaki od vas će te dati račune. Jer kome je puno povjereno, taj će dati veći račun. Njegova je veća odgovornost. Ja vam kažem, ljudi moji, nemojte se igrati. Pogotovo vi u Hrvatskoj. Nemojte se igrati. Igrate se sa Bogom. Koji je oganj koji proždire. Tako da ne namećem svoje mišljenje nikome, to je moje mišljenje. Ja vjerujem u Boga koji je Bog pravde. Koji što kaže, ja nisam Bog koji ljubi nepravdu. Znači, i za Isusa Krista kaže, zato što si ljubio pravednost, a mrzio nepravednost, bezakonje, zato te Bog, tvoj Bog, pomaza uljem radosti mimo tvojih drugova, i tako dalje, i tako dalje. Znači, ako Bog nije Bog pravde, onda nije Bog. Isus je rekao, blago gladnima i žednima pravednosti, jer će se nasititi. Ali ćete imat nevolje u ovom svijetu, ljudi moji. Kogod želi živjeti pravedno, istinito, pobožno, pošteno, bit će progonjen. Zato što je zlo uzelo maha. Tako da moramo toga biti svjesni. Pogledajte šta ovi luđaci rade. Pogledajte vi šta ovi luđaci na vlasti rade. Ovaj luđak, htio je što više djevojčica oploditi. Jer on je kajsti super sjeme, ko ovaj idiot Elon Musk. Pa dajte ljudi, nemojte biti glupi, ne idete se zavoditi, ne idete da od vas rade budale. Informacija, edukacija je 95% zdravlja. I mentalnog, i emocionalnog, i duhovnog, i fizičkog. 100% uvjerena. Evo, na svojoj vlastitoj koži. Edukacija i informacija. Ja da sam bila educirana i informirana na vrijeme, ok, nema veze. Bilo prošlo. Ali na tome sam naučila i moja dužnost je pričati o tome. Ako to nekome pomogne, slava Bogu Isusu Kristu. Eto. Ništa ljudi, evo, toliko horor priča, toliko ih je i zanima me šta je sa onom dječicom iz Afrike, koja su preko suda u Zlataru, gdje je Plenković tuži onog čovjeka radi komentara na Facebooku i čovjek je 2 mjeseca proveo u zatvoru. Za to ćeš odgovarat, Plenkoviću. Za to ćeš odgovarat, ja ti kažem. Odgovarat ćeš za to i obeštetit ćeš tog čovjeka. Jer si doveo njegovo zdravlje i egzistenciju u pitanje. Zbog banalnog komentara na Facebooku. Nećeš se iživljavat uz pomoć svojih sudaca potkupljenih. Preko kojih su se švercala djeca iz Afrike. Preko ove sekte Možemo. Svi ste vi za mene sekte. Sve političke, vjerske, ove, one. Svi strančarite, radite razdore u društvu, bavite se kriminalom, mito, korupcija. Znači Hrvatska je u nečemu broj 1. Nažalost i sramotu. Po korupciji, mitu, a 85% ljudi se izjašnjava da su vjernici, katolici. Meni je to zastrašujuće. Meni je to, ljudi moji, zastrašujuće. Ja ne znam kako vi to možete trpiti. I pozivam ove popove. Pozivam vas popove, kardinale, kak se već etiketirate. Zakaj šutite? Znači, vi ste farizeji. Vi ste farizejčine. Ko prije 2000 godina. Sa Herodom. Isus je rekao, čuvajte se farizejskog i Herodovog kvasca. Znači, religioznog kvasca koji na vas stavlja terete i daće, i ovog političkog, s kime je ovaj farizejski u dilu, zato kaj od njega ima korist, da vas drži u pokornosti. To mu je zadatak. Znači, to je zadatak crkve, to je zadatak religije, držat ljude u pokornosti. I politika tu plaća, znači država daje novce. I da ovi glasaju za ove koji su na vlasti. Razumijete? Tako da ma joj. Ok, ništa ljudi. Lijepi pozdrav, svako dobro, čuvajte živce, nemojte se stresirat. Ja sam nedavno imala jednu gadnu epizodu, nešto kao lagani srčani udar ili tako nešto. Čujete se, vremena su gadna, ljudi su pokvareni, ja sam jednostavno u šoku. Zato kaj sam ona stara garda, generacija, 75. godište, nisam ja navikla na ove stvari. Na bezobrazluk, nepoštovanje, laganje u ime Boga, ne može. Pozdrav.